And so our office wants to do what the Despondé Center does, make it really clear that we're happy to support and be useful to any innovation. It doesn't matter if it's protectable. It doesn't matter if there's technical IP. Oh, wow. I am going slower than I thought. The Von Liebig Center in San Diego and QB3 also have some very interesting programs that we've copied in largest part. We're trying to do a number of things very differently. We have new entrepreneurship programs, veteran, chief medical officers, and VCs, as I mentioned. We're working to meet the very, very unhappily unmet need of incubation space in the area. And I have a big idea to share with you at the end of this. There isn't anywhere near the availability of early stage funding that there needs to be. And so we're hot on the trail to rectify that. And we are hiring at this quarter 3 industry relations officers to help us create proactive relationships with the kind of companies that tend to sponsor research and licensed technology. We have a new commercialization gap fund that doesn't only give money as it used to. We now create a team of entrepreneurs in residence, our MBA students who earn 2 credits for sizing up the market opportunity, and patent agents who create a comprehensive IP analysis. So we're trying to make sure that we're throwing many resources toward our gap fund winners and not only a check. The University of Utah, which I mentioned has such a success, manages $81 million in seed funds. Where they think it's warranted, they can muster $1 million to put behind a startup, and we can muster $50K. That's a really big difference. We have emulated almost every program they have, but if we can emulate the startup money, it's doubtful we'll get there. And so we're working to raise an alumni fund. The idea is that we would go out and solicit donations from Huskies who want to see the university become more entrepreneurial. It would be a collaboration between the business school, the law school, and the College of Engineering in our office, with the idea that that would allow us to really integrate the educational mission of the university into the endeavor. And the proceeds, any returns, would go to scholarship, Husky Promise, et cetera. So it's a way for donors to feel that maybe they're going to be leveraging their donation at the same time that they support more entrepreneurial activity going on within the university. Our bigger vision is working over the next 5 years to create a research park like those that are present at some of the most dynamic innovation universities. Carnegie Mellon would be probably the example that comes most to mind. We want to have a very large building or complex that houses the WTIA, the WBBA, the Life Science Discovery Fund, our offices, incubator facilities run by the university, but also private incubation entities, and a building or complex that has offices for Apple and Intel and all of the companies that are research collaborators with us or who tend to license our technologies to support our faculty in some way. And then all kinds of startup resources, including venture capital outposts, for example. And so this is an idea we're socializing with all of those entities. And I think the good news is that because they're all very excited by it, there's a good chance that we'll be approaching the legislature with one voice for a change. So a little bit about what we're doing. And I think I have a few minutes left to answer questions. So, I didn't get to be here for some of the earlier presentations. It's the Washington Technology Center Innovation Summit today in Tacoma, and Norm Dix was having a big event as well. So I didn't get to get a sense of what you'd already heard about and whether there was any overlap. And so I'm hoping I talked about some things that are a little bit different, but if I can answer any questions, I'd love to.
Thank you for your talk. It brings up a very important point, I think, relative to the things that we did hear earlier, both in terms of what was mentioned earlier in terms of measurements, as well as what we heard earlier in terms of total factor productivity. One of the issues that comes up with the innovation, and particularly intellectual property ownership, is the pricing of it. When you get a patent, you're real excited, and you think it's the best idea that's ever been created, and you go into a room and you say, what's this worth? and you price it totally out of the ballpark, it's not viable anymore. Most people are so attached to that that they can't see putting it into a market where it's going to be competitive. Having come from that world and seen it happen over and over again, how do you handle that?
Well, even before capital markets that were as tight as they have been over the last couple of years, I think that any idea that there's a line at the door of competing bidders for any given piece of intellectual property is, sadly a fantasy. I mean, every once in a while there are several, prospects. It's sometimes the case that we have an opportunity either to license to a large existing company or start a company around something. And in that case, we tend, because of our priority that I mentioned, to do what the faculty member's heart wants, right? Because our goal is to make our faculty believe that we're doing what they want. But I think the first thing we do is we're very realistic in understanding that these technologies are really, really early. I mean, I started 10 early-stage companies where, they started as one person. So I know early, and I still sometimes sit in meetings and go, oh, God, that's early. So I think we're self-aware about that. We know that in most cases, a license is often going to be a long-term relationship between a prospective licensee, a large company, or some venture capitalists or entrepreneurs who spent quite a lot of time, maybe a year or 2 years, nurturing their relationship with the researcher, getting to know the area of research, and becoming more and more comfortable with the prospect of making an enormous investment, not in what they're going to pay us, right? I mean, the license is like this. I mean, they're going to have to go out there and put millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars into actually getting something to market. And so I think we're very realistic about the fact that if we want to have impact, we're going to be partnering, not negotiating. And the difficulty in pricing, though, or I guess more broadly what licensing terms are going to be, the inconsistency, because of course you just can't, if someone says, so what do you charge for a license? I would have to say, what do you want a license? I mean, it is circumstantial, right? I mean, we have a fiduciary duty to both our researcher and the state and the university to be doing the right thing for the technology. And so one of the things I think that makes tech transfer offices very frustrating for the investment community in particular, or large companies, is that they can't get a clear answer every time as to exactly what it's going to cost every single time they show up. Now, what we can do to give them some transparency is give them a sense at least of the kind of terms we tend to ask for, or the way that we go about thinking about things. And since I got here, I've endeavored to do exactly that, at least share our philosophy and our approach so that it can seem less arbitrary. Yeah? Thank you then for having me. We think it's a great privilege to be working with our talented researchers, and if you know anyone on campus who you think should know more about us, please urge them to contact us.